Welcome to Inspire, Heal and Empower Conversations. I'm your host, Jackie Taff. And for those of you who don't know me, I am a mental health advocate. And I truly believe that when you become an authority on yourself, you step into who you truly are. Because self-knowledge is self-power. And if I was to leave you with a little thought today, I would say to you that the world is happening from you and not to you. And so today I am very excited to have quite an incredible, wise person with me. This man's name is Donal O'Leary. Donal is a health, wisdom advocate, a public speaker, and recently a TEDx speaker of How to Feel Free, which happened in Tralee on the 15th of October. I have been very fortunate to get to know Donal since the beginning of the pandemic. And I love speaking with Donal because when you speak with Donal, you always leave with self-reflecting thinking. And I love that about Donal. So I'm not going to speak anymore because I'm very excited to have Donal here with me today. And welcome, Donal O'Leary. How are you?
Thank you. Great, thanks, yes.
Donal, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. And, you know, your talk, your TEDx talk, How to Feel Free, it's incredible. I've shared it over the platforms and it's thought-provoking, which is what I love. Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yes, it's probably based on the fact that I see everything in the world is inverted and reversed. Put another way, whatever the world tells you, believe the opposite and you'll probably be closer to the truth. Now, I know that's pretty radical, but yes, check out your own beliefs and views and attitudes. And check out your beliefs, particularly if you're on the side of the majority. Don't automatically believe your mind, thoughts, and beliefs. That's my opening statement for today.
Absolutely. It's I love it. It's evaluate, critically question your own thoughts.
Yes, I would take a slightly more passive view. I would say don't automatically believe. In fact, I'm more inclined to let thoughts be rather than attack them or overly analyze them. Let them be. Like the clouds in the sky, let them float by. Don't pay them any attention, or as little as possible. There's a great example given by a Scottish guy, Sandy Newbigging. He's a meditation teacher. And he gives the example of lying on a field on the grass on a summer's day and looking up at the sky. And the sky represents consciousness, everything, unity, whatever. And all is well. And some birds cross the view of the person lying on the grass. And the person's attention is distracted by the birds. And why am I mentioning this? I'm mentioning this because this story is not about the birds at all. It's about the loss of the sky. When his or her attention was distracted to the birds, the sky was still there. It's a cloudy day in Dublin today. The sky is still there, and the sun is still shining. It's about perspective.
Absolutely. It's about creating a space or a gap to become aware.
It's about not being glued to, identified with, limited to our perceptions, our thoughts, even what we see. We are we are not what we see, what we think, and especially what we identify with.
Absolutely.
It's a common saying to label is to limit. Anything you label, no matter how big the description, anything you label, you limit it. And to limit is to be less than what we are. Because essentially, we are beyond words. We are without limitation. We have no beginning and no end. We just are. As I said in the TEDx talk, to see ourselves as the container, metaphorically, obviously, to see ourselves as the container rather than the contents. The container being forever complete, unchangeable, happy, serene, and secure. And the contents being forever incomplete, restless, unhappy, agitated, and complaining.
I suppose it's, for the purpose of us all living in the world, we've been conditioned.
We've been conditioned to associate with the body in particular. We are glued to the body. We identify with the body. We see ourselves as the physical body. And we all know that the physical body is going to die. At least we know it intellectually. So if we think we're the body, as magnificent as it is, by the way, and is to be treasured and respected and cared for. So I'm not dismissing the majesty of the body in any way, but it is going to die.
Yeah.
And if we identify with something that we know is going to die and most likely deteriorate over time, how can we be anything but insecure? If we are totally identified with the body, then we are forever insecure because we know where it's going. I heard someone saying recently that if you want a good look at where things are going or what the future is going to be like, go and take a good walk in a graveyard. No, I'm not being morose here at all.
No, I know you're not.
But at a physical level, at least, that's the reality. And there's freedom in reality. The truth shall set you free, regardless of how difficult that truth is.
I completely agree with you, but there seems to be an unspoken understanding that we nearly don't embrace that we don't indeed embrace that it's nearly like an uncomfortable conversation, the end of life conversation, whereby just like birth and the celebration of it, we are leaving. The body will die.
Our lives are mostly about avoidance. And that takes a lot of effort. Avoiding takes a lot more energy and effort than acknowledging or accepting. And I now see with a clarity that the road to freedom is largely about facing and feeling. I'm talking about, when I say facing, I primarily mean non-avoidance. Be willing to face whatever's in front of you as it is, without some color glasses, and be as willing as you can to face and be with and acknowledge and respect the full spectrum of your emotions and feelings. So that's why I say facing and feeling is the road to freedom. When we feel, we allow for the possibility of evaporation of that felt hurt. And I suppose I'm slightly going into the area of trauma here. As long as we keep the lid on the pot, as long as the lid is on the pressure cooker, it cannot escape. And I would say suppressing or denying or avoiding is like desperately keeping the lid on the pot so that any of the steam can't evaporate. But when we're willing to face and feel and be with and not distract ourselves and be willing to live with a certain inner restlessness and agitation, then we allow for the possibility that some of that will dissipate or evaporate and just not be as much as it was before. And that's in the direction of freedom.
Well, Donal, I can only speak from my own point of view around the writing of the book that I wrote and the situation that I referred to in the book and the freedom that I've experienced. And I say it a lot in a lot of the quotes that I do or a lot of the talks that I do, that it's incredible, the infinite sense of well-being I have personally found in the expression of what happened to me. And I fully agree with you. It is like a pressure cooker. If you're not in that place yet in your life, and it is a journey. You have to arrive as individuals. We all have to arrive at our own point when we either share it or we look at it or we just simply, we meet it head on and we face it. And maybe some will never in their lifetime. That's their choice. But I can only speak from my experience of it to say that regardless of the challenges that I face in my life, I have found peace by facing that and allowing it and being open and transparent and telling you and sharing it with others and being absolutely comfortable with the fact that this happened to me and I have to talk about it.
Yeah, you're no longer guarding a secret, effectively.
Absolutely.
You're no longer wasting your energy and attention in guarding a secret. And the fact that it's out there probably means that you're more comfortable with it. If you were ever guilty about it, if you were guilty about it in the past, you're probably not now, I suspect. And when it's out there, it's out there. And you let it be.
Well, you see, I love this, as did you say, I'm like truth. I'm passionate to just the truth. And the truth is as it is. And so therefore just naming it, it is as it is. It is as it is. And I'm okay to say that is as it is. And I think an awful lot of time can be taken by people given energy to hiding and avoiding and suppressing rather than just allowing.
Absolutely. And to go back over that again, the suppressing and the denying and the avoiding takes up so much energy and it blinds us to the world. I have seen in my own life that we can only really see other people and be there for them to the degree that we've kind of got over our own stuff.
Yes.
To some degree, at least. As long as we are preoccupied with how we look, what we're guarding, what secrets we have. And ironically, what we try to hide, the secrets we try to hide, we draw more attention to them by trying to hide them.
Yes.
Because even if the other person doesn't know what's really going on, they know that there's something going on. You draw, to put it simply, you draw attention to that which you try to hide.
Absolutely.
And you waste a whole lot of energy and disconnect yourself from the world in the process. We are about as happy and present to the degree that we are in acceptance and so not in resistance. And what is keeping the lid on the pressure cooker but resistance? If we could wave a magic wand and drop all resistance from our lives, now this is not reality, but if we could wave a magic wand and drop resistance from our lives would change utterly. And by resistance, I also mean rejection, judgment. It all comes from resistance. In other words, resistance is wanting things to be other than the way they are, which is a kind of insanity, because it's a cloudy day here. There is no point in my being upset with the clouds. It's not bright here in Dublin this morning. And it would be crazy for me. I wish the sun was shining now. I wish I could see a blue sky. I'm talking about resistance as basic as that. It's a beautiful morning. The sun is up, but not. I can't see it. But that is perfect. That's just the way it is. So let it be.
There's a lot of that going on, as in trying to change situations out of our control. You know, and the acceptance of, well, I can't change that situation, but I can change how I react and respond to that situation. That's really when you step into who you truly are. That's when you step into, you take control of yourself and your own emotions.
You can change your reaction, but mostly by just awareness.
Yes.
To the degree that you're unattached, unidentified with, not in resistance, you will tend to act more appropriately and more in proportion. You won't fly off the handle at a small thing, which we tend to do when we're overly identified, when we're stressed, when we're in resistance. We tend to overreact to things. But when we're kind of laid back, and I don't mean total passivity here, but when we see things in proportion, when we're in the flow, when we get things done without seeing ourselves as the doer, when we are more the instrument than the doer, if that makes any sense.
But passivity and calmness and peace is powerful. And I mean, it's like an old saying years ago that, you know, boys don't cry or men shouldn't cry.
Mm-hmm.
That's so untrue. And to reflect that anybody that will cry or express how they feel through crying is weak, is, for me personally, very untrue. And it's usually powerful when someone can be really honest about where they're at, how they feel, and just simply allow them to have that outpouring of emotion without the other person kind of getting uncomfortable and saying, no, you don't need to cry, you don't need to. Let them cry. Just let it go.
Yes. There's a woman called Susan David. I think that's her name, yes. And she says, when you ask me to be positive, what you're really asking me to do, in effect, is you're asking me to put your feelings above my reality. You might have guessed here that I'm not a huge fan of being overly positive. I'm a huge fan of being real. And to be real is to be positive. And when I say that I'm not a big fan of being overly positive, I mean that I'm not a big fan of fake positivity, essentially. Don't jazz it up. Don't give me a whole lot of hype, because I won't believe it anyway. So be willing to be with what is. And if someone else wants to cry, whether it's a man or a woman, a boy or a girl, that's their reality. And if you're uncomfortable with that, check yourself and not them.
Yes. Isn't that the cause of a lot of difficulties in the world, as in, you know, allowing just things to be as they are without us trying to shift it, showing our discomfort, as in trying to numb that down, just allow it be and actually just have the conversation. The amount of conversation never had because of some preconceived conception of how it might go. Just let it be. It is as it is.
And you know, that avoidance that I'm talking about, that discomfort, that inability or unwillingness to be with what is at the root of all addictions. Every single one of them. It doesn't matter whether it's alcohol or drugs or gambling or anything. At the root of all addictions, to put it another way, is our sense of restlessness, our inability or unwillingness to be with what is. It's our need to escape, our need to pretend that things are otherwise, because all addictions are an effort to escape.
Absolutely. Once again, to suppress the pain, to suppress the root cause rather than going to the root cause and addressing that.
Right.
Yeah, it's like I can just see a little pressure cooker and a boiling pot. It's like bubbling away. And the peace when that lid is taken off, the peace, the acceptance of oneself.
Yeah, the air in the pot when the lid is taken off, the air in the pot finds its own level, finds its own natural place in the room or in wherever. Let things be, let nature be the way it is. Everything is in flow, everything is permanently changing. And who are we? Parts of nature ourselves. Who are we to have an opinion even about the way things should be? Who are we to resist the vast flow of nature? We're puny, tiny little magical beings that appear for a while, live out our lives for a while, and then disappear for all time, apparently.
And eventually be completely forgotten and depending.
Oh, totally.
Who knew us, who knew us. And I funny enough, I thought of something like that yesterday. I was just thinking where I am in my family status and my memories and how many is left of us to reflect on. And what I really realize is that it's literally only me. And it's fascinating.
Yeah, but that is not to demean or dismiss the mystery and the magic of being alive for a while, and the utter extraordinary adventure that it is, and the mystery that it all is. I mean, here we are, tiny little beings on a speck of earth, spinning in space. We have no beginning that we know of. We have no end. We don't know where we're going in any sense. And can I recommend something? While I'm on the subject of tiny beings spinning in space, I would highly recommend something called pale blue dots. It's a description of the Earth taken from 4 billion miles on Valentine's Day 1990 by Voyager 1. That's a picture of the Earth taken from 4 billion miles in 1990. And it's a dot. It's a pixel on a large photograph. And the late Carl Sagan wrote a beautiful poetic piece, and he has a beautiful voice as well, about this, what he called the pale blue dots, looking at the Earth from a distance of 4 billion miles. And I would highly recommend, if you want a little perspective this morning or any time, listen to Carl Sagan. It's less than 10 minutes, I think. Pale blue dots.
I saw it, and it's an incredible piece because it's nearly like as they're up there looking down, it's to look back at the Earth. Here we are. We're just a tiny dot.
Yes.
And it does put things into perspective. And what it does is it really creates an awareness of how big am I in the scheme of things? How big am I in this whole big planet and universe? And it's mind-blowing, isn't it? It's mind-blowing the amount of stars, mind-blowing the amount of planets. And even if you look at nature and the shape of a flower, it's incredible that these things just appear.
Yeah.
Just are. And I think for me, that's where in my life, knowing some of these things, coming to understand them, really allows you to step into who you truly are and live your life with the peace and calm and tranquility that each and every one of us deserve.
I feel for me sometimes it's about moving away from trying to understand, which I can never do anyway, into moving from the logic to the mystery. There's a great mystery in the sense that, as far as I know, there is no understanding of time. There is no understanding of the beginning or ending of time. That it has no beginning and no end as far as we know. And if there is, we've no comprehension of it. In fact, it's probably not real at all anyway. It's probably in this, call it human dimension, for the want of a better term. So there's no beginning and there's no end to time. And there's no beginning and no ending to space. By the way, that Voyager 1, that was roughly 4 billion miles. 4 billion, that's roughly half the population of the Earth. 4 billion miles in 1990. That Voyager 1 is now about 14 billion miles from the Earth. And it's still going. And there is no end in sight.
Yeah.
And no one can say that it's going to hit a brick wall anytime soon, or that it's going to stop, or that space ever ends. There is no end to space that we know of, or that we can even imagine.
But even to sit there now for that second, that moment, just to think and reflect on that.
Mm.
Doesn't that really bring it home? How tiny, you know, I'm sensing I am here, sitting here with you today. I'm tiny.
Yes.
I'm kind of insignificant.
Yes.
You know, and
that picture that I described, that picture of the Earth, shows how tiny the Earth is, never mind us.
Yeah.
How tiny the galaxy is, even in the grand scheme of things. We've no idea whether there are any limits at all.
Yeah.
It's simply beyond our comprehension. All we can do is sit and wonder.
And that's a wonderful place to sit and wonder, isn't it? To sit and just wonder, because it is limitless. And yet, you know, what is it? Why is it 1,000 of people going around thinking they're limited? So what's that about? You know, when I love the piece whereby the child, you look at the child, and even the other day again I was in doing the grocery shopping last Friday, and I don't know what it is, but children tend to say hello to me, and they're probably average between the age of, say, 2 and 2.5, and they're sitting in the trolley with the parent, and I'm ready to go into the queue, and next I hear a big loud voice, hello, and I look over, and this gorgeous little guy, he's like 2, and I just laughed over at him, and I said, how are you? And the mum was kind of shocked, because she went, don't be saying to him, don't be, you know, and I went, no, that's wonderful, how are you? You know, what is it about life that conditions that and takes that away, that we nearly go around in fear to look up and to look at somebody else and to say, hi, how are you today? And actually have a conversation and mean it when we say, how are you? And I love that.
Believe it or not, what you just described happens to me too on a regular basis. But I was just thinking there that I would say to go out at night and look up at the stars will be of more benefit to you than reading any book.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I wonder how many look up at the sky, you know, because I see it like a kaleidoscope. Every day it shifts and it moves, and it's like an art piece that's just continually shifting, and I wonder how many go and look up.
Very few. And paradoxically, it's in seeing our smallness in relation to the stars that makes us feel whole in some strange, paradoxical way. Seeing ourselves in the context of space and time. Reality will always bring us home closer to where we really are, and will give us a sense of peace, tranquility, and majesty that we don't have when we're rushing around trying to do this, that, and the other, when we're identified, when we're so engrossed, and maybe we get too tense with trying to achieve various deadlines. Go out and look at the stars, and everything is okay. The universe is going on its merry way, and we are a tiny part of it.
Yeah, it's really being conscious and deliberate and aware. And what I find is with trees, I look at trees and I wonder how old some of the trees are. And it's quite evident to me that some of them are here a very long time and have just stood there and looked down at many others that have passed and have since gone. You know, and the knowledge that they hold just to stand there silently and age, it's quite incredible. And I do look, and this is not being morbid when I say this, and I look and I go, that tree's going to be there when I'm not here anymore.
Yeah.
That's just not morbid. That's just me accepting the reality of the situation. And that's okay.
Exactly. What we could learn from a tree. I go walking in the park most every day, and you know, the same trees are there day after day after day. Sometimes the leaves are blowing in the wind a little, and sometimes they're swaying in the breeze a little. But they seem, in their own way, to be contented to just be there. And they have no requirements. They have no demands. They have no expectations. They have no complaints. They have no resistance. They float, they sway back and forth with the wind. So we could learn a lot from a tree.
Yeah. It's just incredible. And I always kind of sit and think about that as as I'm going along and watching certain things, and they just know, they just are. And they, as you say, the leaves know when to fall, they know when to come back. Everything's perfectly timed.
Yeah, they just are. And if we could apply that to ourselves, or if we could just be that ourselves, because to the degree that we are, rather than be having, knowing, and doing. In other words, when we primarily are being, when we focus on being, rather than having, knowing, and doing, when our attention is on our being, rather than having, knowing, and doing, then we're closer to our natural state of peace, tranquility, happiness, contentment, and most of all, acceptance.
Absolutely. And our lives go in the direction of where our attention goes. And if we all got very, very deliberate in placing our attention on things that make us happy, we'd have a lot of happiness and peace in the world.
We would, and 'tis easier to pay attention to being when we're less identified with the other things, the having, the knowing, and the doing. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those, if you follow me. But it's like the birds in the sky I described earlier. There's nothing wrong with the birds either. They are naturally flying around. It's the fact that they drag one's attention away from the sky, which represents consciousness, There's no harm in being aware of the birds. The trick is to not lose awareness of the sky, which represents consciousness and being. So to the degree that we can be free of our thoughts, and I believe more and more that it's less about having better thoughts or positive thoughts or changing our thoughts. I think it's more and more about not getting involved with them. Let them float by like the clouds. I'd say just be indifferent to your thoughts to the degree that you can. Just don't pay them much attention.
I love the fact that I would say, simply embrace them, because when we resist them, sure, what we resist persists. I mean, we end up in a struggle. So I would encourage people to just simply embrace them, as you say, see them. And I would say, just see them as a passerby or an acquaintance that happens to have an opinion on everything. But we choose the thoughts.
Yes, I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of embracing everything as it is, absolutely, for sure. But embracing, it doesn't mean absolutely believing and being taken in by.
Yes.
Embracing means allowing.
Yes.
Allowing them to float by. Just like you might see a train in the distance passing by. And it's just an observation. You don't have probably any particular strong feeling about it either way. It's just a train going in its merry way. If we could treat our thoughts in the same way.
And if we just allow life to be. So if we don't get that thing, say, on the Christmas list in the next couple of weeks that we really wanted to get, it's okay. We were swearing to get it. Let it go and let it be.
Oh yeah, desire is the root cause of pain. We're very conditioned in thinking that have a desire is a good thing.
Mm.
But desire is painful when we see it in reality. Because having a desire is wanting things to be different.
Yeah. Yes.
And if we want something, we automatically believe that we don't have it. And to want to change something is in some way a rejection of the way things are now. We don't see it that way. We are conditioned to believe differently, totally differently. That's why I said at the beginning, everything is reversed and inverted. Whatever the world tells you, believe the opposite, and you'll probably be close, or check out the opposite at least, and you'll probably be closer to the truth.
Donal, I could sit here with you for hours. We could have these conversations for hours, because I love what you have to say, and I hope that the listeners really take on board and play this back a few times and take pieces of it, because there's little gems, pearls of wisdom, as I call them, shooting through the conversation in the last 40 minutes. And, this will not be the last time, Donal, that you and I will be sitting here talking again, as in I would love you to come back on again to talk about health, because you're passionate too about health. And Donal has a depth of knowledge around health and areas of health and insights that I do think he needs to come back on and share with you, the listeners, because I think you'll take from it, because I've taken some great suggestions from Donal myself and applied them in my life. Donal, where can the listeners find you?
They can find me on Facebook. It's the only social media that I'm on. And they can call me. 087 28 45 864.
And
That's
your
it.
email?
Email is moreandlesshealthbasics@gmail.com. More and less healthbasics@gmail.com.
And we can pop all those details into the bio with Donal's podcast. And also I'll include the link to Donal's TED Talk, How to Feel Free. And I would suggest that you listen to it and share it with your friends or colleagues or anybody that you feel would benefit from the content of what Donal has to say in that. Donal, if you were to say one thing or one sentence to the listeners today, would you like to leave them with anything?
Don't take yourself too seriously. I mean, I'd say most people would see me as fairly serious, but I'm pretty positive. I'm pretty content. Life is not so serious. It's ephemeral passing, and it's a magical, wonderful adventure. And to sit with and be with the mystery of being alive. When we're gone, each of us individually are gone. The world will go on. And for whatever reason, we're here in this place at this time, having the experiences that we're having. And like all of us here will, one by one, in some particular order unknown at this point, we will all drop off this stage to never come back in any physical sense, as far as I know. So it's a once-off gig as far as we know.
Donal,
So
wonderful. And, you know, we're a few days away from Christmas, and with the conversation today, listeners, you know, maybe to take on board maybe some of these little pearls of wisdom into 2022 and make it your year, because you are incredible. And I think what we'll do, because this will go up and go live over the platforms, we'll leave you with a little thought today. And I think it's so appropriate because of Donal being here with me. And this is for you, the listeners, to step into who you truly are for 2022. One should never be nervous about being asked to tackle anything. One has all the power necessary to achieve everything within oneself. It is only necessary to remember your power. If people are nervous, it is because they forgot their potentialities and only remember their limitations. And so with that, I want to thank Donal O'Leary for coming today. It was an absolute pleasure. He'll be back again. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. Please share this if you got any benefit from it. And it was an absolute pleasure. And have a wonderful Christmas and New Year. And we'll see you in the new year. Thank you.
thank you, Jackie.